We're diving into the wild world of Beatlemania with 29 mind-blowing photos. See how this incredible phenomenon shook a generation. Don't forget to give us a like. Starting with a memorable moment from December 10, 1963, in Doncaster, England, where the Beatles are caught in a playful scene. Paul McCartney, with a theatrical expression of jealousy, shakes his fist as George Harrison is surrounded by fans. It was the beginning of the transformation of four young men from Liverpool into global icons. Moving to February 1964, during their first visit to the United States, a photo taken in Miami, Florida, captures the euphoria of American fans. Two enthusiastic young women are seen reaching out to Ringo Starr, the band's drummer, as they are caught up in the excitement of Beatlemania. Also captured was the moment when the band members ran along the beach, chased by a group of enthusiastic fans. The Beatles' impact on the musical and cultural scene of the time sparked a true frenzy in the United States. On February 23, 1964, the Beatles, freshly returned from their American tour, were surrounded by an ecstatic crowd in London. This captures the fervent admiration that followers had for the band. On the same day, an unusual event occurred at a television studio. A fan managed to invade the studio and cling to George Harrison, a member of the Beatles. A police officer had the challenging task of trying to remove her from the musician. On May 15, 1964, London became the backdrop for an impressive scene. Surrounded by a throng of enthusiastic fans, John Lennon worked on the filming of the movie Help. This image reflects not only the massive popularity of the group, but also the intense connection the band had established with its audience. On June 14, 1964, at Sydney Airport, Australia, the Beatles' arrival sparked a frenzy among fans. In an attempt to control the ecstatic crowd, police had to push a fence to prevent the admirers from invading the area reserved for the band. This scene captures the chaotic mix of devotion and excitement from the band's followers during that time. In the same year, during the filming of A Hard Day's Night in London, an unexpected moment occurred. Despite the scene being carefully orchestrated, an unplanned crowd of girls expressed their enthusiasm for the Beatles by pressing their faces against the glass to get a closer look at guitarist George Harrison. On July 10, 1964, the premiere of A Hard Day's Night was marked by an unforgettable event in Liverpool, England. With the Beatles in attendance, the excitement overwhelmed the fans, who, in a surge of adoration, ended up causing a chaotic commotion. The frenzy was so intense that some people were knocked down and trampled by the uncontrolled crowd. Among the fans, a young woman overwhelmed by emotion upon seeing the Beatles fainted and was promptly assisted by a police officer. And here police officers carry the girl to a safe location, highlighting the necessary actions taken amid the chaos created by the band's unprecedented popularity. The next day, in Teddington, England, Paul McCartney is seen being escorted by members of a television crew. The famous group opted for a boat trip to avoid the frenzied crowd of fans. However, despite the security measures, a fan still managed to grab McCartney's shirt. As Paul McCartney walks toward a television studio, another fan grabs his arm. This demonstration of intense devotion reflects the cultural impact the Beatles had during their meteoric rise in music. Just a few days later, on July 19, 1964 in London, the same scene repeats itself. A fan manages to break through the police barrier, driven by the desire to be just a few steps closer to the Beatles. On August 22, 1964, during a Beatles concert in Vancouver, Canada, the euphoria and intensity of the moment caused a young fan to faint. The captured scene shows police trying to assist the girl, who embodies the Beatlemania dominating the youth of that era. During the tour that same month, now in the United States, American fans stretch out their hands with energy and excitement in an attempt to touch Paul McCartney as he descends the stairs on his way to a concert. However, during the Beatles' surge in popularity in the United States, Young fans showed no limits to their enthusiasm. One of the most notable incidents occurred in San Francisco, California, when a group of them descended the emergency stairs of a hotel in an attempt to invade the band's room. In the following year, in June 1965, Paul McCartney experienced the peak of Beatlemania. As he was heading to his hotel in Paris, France, he was surrounded by a crowd of enthusiastic fans. The Beatles were no longer just musicians, but globally revered cultural icons. 2 months later, back in the United States, a common scene unfolds on the streets of New York. A young girl, waiting outside the hotel where the Beatles were staying, could not contain her emotions upon seeing her idols in person and broke down in tears. Still in New York, Beatles fans were overtaken by hysteria during a concert. The image captures the impact and influence the British band had on their followers, reflecting the intensity and passion of the youth of the time for the Beatles' music. During a Beatles concert later that month in Toronto, Canada, a young fan was overcome by such intense emotion upon seeing the band that she needed to be attended to by an ambulance. The fervent Beatlemania that spread worldwide during the 1960s profoundly marked the youth culture of the era. Still in 1965, during the filming of Help, a scene captures John Lennon pressed against a window. He evokes smiles and admiration from fans watching from outside in Salzburg, Austria. On October 26, 1965, something extraordinary happened at the gates of Buckingham Palace in London, England. A crowd of Beatles fans pushed past all barriers just to catch a glimpse of their idols. This was not merely a tourist visit. Inside the palace, the band members were about to experience a historic moment by meeting the Queen. At this landmark event, the Beatles made their triumphant entrance into Buckingham Palace. Meanwhile, a line of police struggled to contain the crowd of young fans, predominantly girls, who were clamoring to get closer to their idols. Moving to the following year, on August 23, 1966, in New York City, a young fan managed to breach the first level of the police barricade during a Beatles concert amid intense euphoria and fervor. However, before she could reach the stage, she was detained by the police. The following week, during a Beatles concert at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, California, while the band continued to play, the police worked tirelessly to control fans who had stormed the field, trying to herd them back into the stands. In 1968, on the bustling streets of London, a common scene involved the Beatles. John, Paul, George, and Ringo are surrounded by a group of young fans, mostly girls, eager for an autograph from their idols. Despite their growing global fame, they still found time to interact with admirers on the streets of their own city, exemplifying the direct and genuine connection with the public that helped solidify their immense cultural legacy. However, in May of the same year, while Paul McCartney was trying to watch a soccer match in London, a fan, overwhelmed by emotion, reached out in an attempt to touch the musician's hair. McCartney, visibly annoyed, showed signs of impatience at the invasion of his personal space. This highlights the price of fame faced by the Beatles at the height of Beatlemania. On March 12, 1969, news rocked the hearts of Beatles fans on the streets of London. Paul McCartney announced his marriage to Linda Eastman. For the fans, the shock was evident. Tears streamed down their faces, a mix of joy for their idol and sadness over an unfulfilled romantic dream. This was part of the extraordinary journey of 4 young men who not only changed the face of music, but also left a lasting mark on global culture. And if you want more Beatlemania content, drop us a comment and let us know what you think.